Every student participating in pro bono has ethical and professional obligations they are required to follow. The big three that will be addressed today are confidentiality, professionalism, and not being held out as an attorney while performing your pro bono services.
Confidentiality. Rule of Professional Conduct 4-1.6 states, a lawyer shall not reveal information relating to representation of a client except as stated in subdivisions B, C, and D unless the client consents after disclosure to the client.
When engaged in legal pro bono work, students are required to adhere to the same confidentiality requirements that govern attorneys. While confidentiality and attorney-client privilege are two separate requirements, they do tend to overlap. This rule requires that students must not disclose client confidences unless the client consents and unless the information falls under one of the exceptions. It is important to remember that the confidential relationship between the attorney and client applies to clients seeking advice as well as clients involved in lengthy representation. Also, this confidentiality must be upheld even when your pro bono service comes to an end. The key to protecting this confidentiality is to make sure that you keep the information you learn to yourself and avoid talking to fellow students, friends, or faculty and staff about specific client confidences.
Professionalism. Rule of Professional Conduct 4-1.1 states, a lawyer shall provide competent representation to a client. Competent representation requires the legal knowledge, skill, thoroughness, and preparation reasonably necessary for the representation. Rule of Professional Conduct 4-1.3 states, a lawyer shall act with reasonable diligence and promptness in representing a client. Rule of Professional Conduct 4-1.4a states, a lawyer shall keep a client reasonably informed about the status of a matter and promptly comply with reasonable requests for information.
It is very important that all students engaged in legal pro bono maintain the integrity of the profession. Students participating in legal pro bono should make it a habit to arrive at work on time, dressed in the appropriate professional attire, remain courteous and considerate to those around you, remain organized, and be prepared to represent your client at all times. Keep the client informed of his or her case and all relevant status updates. And finally, research and ask the supervising attorney about legal issues you are unfamiliar with. Being a lawyer is a privilege, not a right. In order to ensure you are worthy of that privilege, you must act professionally at all times. The third factor students should keep in mind is that you are not an attorney. You may be meeting with clients and engaged in legal research, but you must not, at any point, hold yourself out to others as being an attorney. I only addressed the big three factors every student engaged in pro bono will face. However, there are many more. I encourage students to ask questions and seek guidance if there is any confusion as to what you can and cannot do. You are encouraged to ask your supervising attorney or a faculty member. As future attorneys, it is your responsibility to know your ethical and professional obligations.